Okay, guys, so I am back. It is me, Sherelle, the face behind my mental health diary. Finally, I'm here. You finally get to actually see me on camera, which I'm really, really excited about because I feel like I've never done a video for you guys. And I'm super, super excited to even be doing this today with you guys. And mostly I'm excited because I finally can really talk to you guys and really have a conversation. And I think that's going to be the beauty in all this. But what I do want to talk about with you guys and something that I feel like should be addressed is us addressing our mental health. Now, I promise you guys, I will do an episode really soon and tell you guys where I've been and what's new with me, but I'm not going to do that today. So today's episode is going to be about addressing our mental health and why it's so important to address that. A lot of people do not address they have mental health issues. They will feel sad. They'll feel depressed. They have all these emotions. They have suicidal thoughts. But instead of addressing it, they just go on with their daily lives like it's normal when it's not. The issue is when we don't address our mental health issues, it puts us in a bind. It puts us in a bad place. And because we're not addressing those issues, it becomes an unsafe place for us because these issues that are happening and that are occurring are not being fully addressed as they should be. It's always important to make sure that we're addressing our mental health issues and talking about it and getting the best help that we can for our issues. Like, for instance, for me, I address my mental health by going to therapy, by being on medications and seeing my psychiatrist every 2 weeks and seeing my therapist every week, because I know that if I don't do those things, my mental health goes undressed. It's not addressed. It's not addressed at all. It's just sitting there boiling up inside of me, piling up. And I want to also use this as an example, especially when you're in a healing process and you're struggling with depression, anxiety, or any other mental health disorder. We can't continue to just cover our wounds with a Band-Aid. I always use that example because, for instance, with me, a lot of times in my life, I was not addressing my mental health issues. I was not addressing my trauma. I was not healing because all I was doing was putting a Band-Aid on every wound, putting a Band-Aid on it, covering it up. I would get hurt and I would cover with a Band-Aid. And I was never ripping those Band-Aids off. They were just being covered up. Like I would have 3 or 4 Band-Aids just cut all of my pain, all of my trauma, because I did not want to address the elephant in the room. I didn't want to address what was happening with me when I should have been doing that. Let me get a little more light in here, y'all. Oh, sorry. Can y'all see? I'm so sorry. There we go. So instead of addressing those issues, they were going undiagnosed because I was not addressing them. I was just letting them sit there and fester up. And the reality is, when we struggle with mental health issues, we cannot do that. We have to address them head on, no matter what anybody's going to say, no matter what anybody's going to think. We have to address the issues head on and take them for what they are. So many people will say to themselves, well, I know myself. I don't have depression. I don't have anxiety. I'm just having a bad day. I'm having a bad week. But if you are constantly crying all the time, if you can't get out of your bed, if you can't even take a shower, if you're, feeling sad and hopeless almost every day, there is something going on. This is not normal behavior. And for me, I had to address those things because I'm like, why am I crying? Why am I angry? Why am I sad? Why is this happening to me? Why do I want to isolate? And that's a bad habit of mine, guys. I isolate constantly because I don't want to deal with people or deal with any of the things going on with me. So I tend to isolate, which is not healthy, but that's how I deal it. But I address those issues. As soon as I catch them, I immediately address it. And I'll go to my therapist or my primary care doctor, or I'll go to my psychiatrist and say, what's happening? What's going on? I need to address the issue and face it head on. Because when we don't address it, that's when the suicide thoughts come. That's when bad things happen because nothing is being addressed properly. I think that is the scariest thing about the world that we live in and the era that we're in. I do think that stigma of mental health is trying to become broken. And for the most part, it's getting there. But I also feel like a lot of people still are not addressing the elephant in the room. So it becomes a situation where we're not addressing it. We're just going to let it slide under the radar. We're not going to say anything. And when we do those things, it just gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. And I feel like we are not allowing ourselves to address the elephants in the room. So many people don't address the issues, and they don't address it because of fear. They don't address it because of other people's judgment of what are people going to think of me if I address this issue. For a very, very long time, I speak about this in the past too, but for a very, very long time, a lot of you, if you're new here, you may not know this, but for a very long time, I did not address those issues within me. I never addressed what was happening. I never addressed what was bothering me. I never talked about it. I just kept it hidden for a very, very long time. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't put out for the world to see. It was just hidden underneath this rock almost, in a sense. I remember years ago going to Sonic and I was on the phone with my mom as I'm ordering my food, and she's like, I'm telling her about my diagnosis of anxiety and depression, and she's like, oh, you don't have to tell anybody about your mental health disorder. So at the time I wasn't addressing it because I had family and friends saying, don't tell anybody about it, just keep it hidden, keep it secret. And so I wouldn't tell my friends. I wouldn't tell anybody I was in a relationship with because I was scared. I was like, if I tell them, they might judge me. I'm taking my glasses off, y'all, because they really get on my nerves. But I would say, if I tell someone, they're going to judge me. If I tell someone, they might look at me differently. And then what? What are people going to think about me if I address these issues, if I face them head on? But I realized the issue is bigger than me. It's like, even if these people are going to think these things about me, so what? And so for a lot of years, I didn't address my mental health issues. I kept it hidden underneath a rug. I kept it hidden because I was scared that if I addressed it, then I had to face it. And so one day, that's when I created this podcast. And before it was for Spotify, it was something else. Can't remember the name. But I remember it was Anchor. That was it. It was Anchor FM. Anchor FM. Before it was Spotify. And I remember I created this podcast and I said, I'm going to talk about my mental health and I'm going to see who cares. And people started downloading it and really listening and commenting. And I was like, what? I didn't expect to get the plays or the engagement I got, but I was really excited that I got what I got from that. But it let me know that, hey, you're not alone. Like, other people out there are struggling just like you. Other people are trying to find their way. Other people out there are trying to figure it out and taking it day by day just as I am. And I think a lot of times we feel like we may be a bad person or we may feel like people are going to judge us for who we are. But I always say our mental health disorder is not all of who we are. It's a part of us, but it's not all of us. And we don't have to make that our whole identity because it's not our whole identity. But it's also okay to talk about it with other people and not feel ashamed as if something is wrong with us because we have this mental health illness that is not going to go away. I know for the rest of my life I will have anxiety and depression. Digging deeper into that, my doctor actually diagnosed me with a mood disorder when I went to see him. He did a series of evaluations. If anyone doesn't know, mood disorders can range from bipolar to depression to a bunch of things. And so he classified my depression as manic depression. Now, if you look at manic depression, the definition will say that manic depression is basically bipolar, but it's an old saying. So I don't want to jump too much into that because I'm actually going to have to address that issue with my doctor when I see him again, just to clarify, to make sure, like, okay, because he did say that. And I just want to clarify to make sure it's not bipolar and it's just depression, just to clear that up. But I'm just telling y'all what I was told during those meetings. But regardless of what I have or what is going on with me, I don't care who knows. I think you got to get to a place where you start to address it. And if you don't address those issues within you, how can you expect to have other people accept it if you can't accept it? If you don't accept your mental health illness, whether you have bipolar, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, anxiety, depression, if you don't accept that diagnosis, no one else can accept it because inside you haven't accepted that you have this issue. In order to address those issues, you really have to dig deep and it's important to address it, okay? And not just yourself, but everyone around you. And I had to finally get to a place where it's okay to address it. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay for me to feel the way I feel. And some people might be angry about the diagnosis. Some people might be sad. Some people might be upset. Some people have mixed emotions and you don't know what to feel. You might be in a state of shock, but it's okay. It is okay. I think the biggest thing you cannot do is not address the issues in front of you, not address that these things are bothering, not address these issues. I addressed when I was having suicide thoughts. I addressed when I was feeling depressed and sad. And I always do that. I'm really big on masking, so a lot of people don't know when I'm upset or when I'm hurting because I've learned the task of if you mask, no one will care. If you mask, no one will know what's going on. But I've also had to learn that through masking, it's not healthy, but it's a way that I cope. But when I talk to my therapist, I put that masking down and I let her know this is how I'm really feeling. And I'm tired. Like my last session with her was probably Friday. And I told her, I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling very sad and down. I'm isolating from people. I'm not happy. And the more I talked to her, she was able to kind of break down those walls of what was happening with me. And I do suggest therapy for anyone who's struggling because I think therapy is going to be your key to addressing those issues. I think CBT therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, is a perfect therapy because it does address a lot of those issues that we try to bury underneath us. Also, DBT therapy is another good therapy I think people should look into getting because I honestly think it addresses a lot. Depending on what your diagnosis is. Even if you have OCD, things like that. Because I can't disclose too much, but I had a patient who was coming in for OCD. And I think they were looking for EMDR therapy to try to help get rid of that. So all those type of therapies are definitely helpful if you're struggling. And I would say the best thing is to have a good therapist to address it with. Some therapists are not for everybody. Some therapists, it's just a struggle for you to want to address stuff with them because they make you uncomfortable. I've had plenty of patients call me back and say, hey, this therapist you scheduled me with, it wasn't a good fit. It is not going to work out. She was mean. She was this, or she did this, or she did all these things. And so when those things are happening, obviously I have to be able to help them, because I mean, why would I allow them to feel the way that they're feeling and feel like no one's there for them, or they don't deserve a good therapist? So I think that's really, really important to address those major issues and to really go through that journey, because a lot of people really feel like they don't have anyone. I once had a therapist. I'm gonna tell you guys a story time. This was years ago, and I was suicidal, very suicidal. I was ready to kill myself. I was having thoughts, heavy thoughts. I called my therapist. Hello. I'm not gonna say her name, even though her name just popped in my head. And I said, I'm struggling today. I'm having suicidal thoughts. Can you please help me? Because I don't know what to do. I need help. And I'm almost on the verge of tears at this point, telling her I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just really struggling. At this point, I had just also, a few minutes prior to calling her, I had spoken with someone from the National Suicide Hotline, and they were trying to talk me off the edge, and I was letting them know I was in so much pain. So I'm talking to them. They're like, can you get in contact with your therapist or somebody else who can help you outside of this, because they were worried. I say yes. So I called my therapist again, telling her I'm venting to her, phone like this to my ear, on the verge of tears, because I'm just struggling at this point. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just know I'm having suicidal thoughts and I do not want to be here anymore. I'm just done. And she says to me, she talks to me for a little bit. You know, we have a short little conversation. Then she says to me, do you have your credit or debit card on you so you can make a payment to me right now? And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? In the middle of me crying, in the middle of me telling you I'm suicidal, in the middle of me telling you that I want to end it all, you have the nerve to say, what is your card number? This lady wanted to take payment. Now, what am I supposed to do in the moment? I do end up giving her the payment, but I was pissed. Never saw her again after that. Because to me, I look at it this way. I've had not 1,000 therapists, but I've seen a lot of therapists over the years. And the ones I have seen, none of them have ever done that to me when I was talking about my suicidal thoughts. They never said, let's take payment. Understand she has a job to do, she needs to get paid. And yes, I did have insurance, but I guess she still charged me like $100 freaking for that call, y'all. And mind you, I don't know if that time, I don't know what kind of insurance I had at that time. I think it was through a job. I don't remember, but actually, no, that insurance I had was through the marketplace, and it wasn't through my job at the time. Point being, she could have gotten her payment. She could have billed me. She could have done 1,000 things, but instead you say to me, what's your card number? Like, certain things, and I will say this, you can't address your mental health with everybody. You can address it within yourself, which is the first person you should address it to, is always you. But certain people you can't address it to because they don't get it and they just don't care. I think that's some of the things that bug me about the way this world is. I think people, they just don't care how they treat people. They don't care how it looks. They don't care, what you're going through. And while I understand that that's everybody's right, and that everybody doesn't have to feel how you feel, everybody doesn't have to think how you think, while I understand all these things, I just really get annoyed at times when I feel like people are not getting the help that they necessarily need. People are not getting the things that they need to get done to be happy. I don't think that it's right for people to feel as if they're trying to address this issue, but nobody's willing to help them address the issue. And nobody should feel like that. So a lot of times, like I said, I've gone through my life just wondering, like, what if? And why can't I address this issue? Why can't I address it with this person? And because of me being either scared or just knowing that person doesn't really care. But I say all this to say that it's so important to address your mental health issue. It's so important to speak about it. It's so important to acknowledge that it is there, because acknowledging that it's there is the first step to healing and to getting better. We can't get better if we don't acknowledge the things that's happening around us. We don't acknowledge that we're struggling. If we don't acknowledge that we're going through things, how do we heal if we don't acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is your mental health diagnoses, obviously. If I didn't acknowledge my anxiety and depression, I would still be stuck in a place of trying to figure out what's happening with me, because I was not addressing the issues head on. I was ignoring them and sweeping them under the rug. And some people do that, but you cannot do that through life. I've seen some people who, especially on social media, will address their issues. And there's some people can, some people don't care. But I've seen people who swept it under the rug. Because I want to tell y'all, for example, if anyone's seen the show The Famous Jet Jackson, he played the character Lee on that show. And I remember that show vividly, because it was, let me see. I think I Googled this the other day, y'all, because, I do my research. I believe his name was not Lee on the show. Let me Google it, y'all, because I feel like I'm trying to, I'm trying to say this right for y'all, and I don't want to mess nothing up. Okay, let me get this right for y'all. All right, so yes, the famous Jet Jackson. Okay, it was on Disney Channel. His name was actually Jet on that show, my bad. But his real name was Lee Thompson Young. And he also played on another show. I think it was, can't think of the name of the show, but he played on another show. Dang, I can't think of the show. But it was like let me see. It was a show like Lord. I'm so sorry, y'all. It was a show like Law and Order. He played on one of them shows. I'm gonna Google it in 1 minute for y'all. Needless to say, he lost his life in 2013 to suicide. He had a gunshot wound to the head. He was found dead in his apartment. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I don't ever remember him publicly addressing his mental health issues and saying, hey, this is what I have, I'm struggling. He may have did it in private, I don't know. I just know I found an interview also the other day where his mom spoke about him having mania and depression, and I guess how it was under the radar, and the world didn't know, and him committing suicide at 29 years old. I would say at the height of his career. Yeah, he was on the show called Rizzoli and Howes. Yeah, so he was on there and took his life. I say this to say that's why it's so important to address your mental health issues, because when you don't address it, things like that happen because they're going unaddressed. And this is not me getting on anybody who has committed suicide or making anybody look bad, because I'm not. Trust me, I'm not at all. I'm just saying that this is why it's the importance of addressing those issues. So, because if you can address them head on, you can kind of nip it in the bud before it gets to that point where you feel like, where you end up ending it all. Because believe it or not, a lot of celebrities, we think they are so pulled together because they have money, they have fame, they're constantly on vacations, they have all these luxury items. A lot of celebrities are not happy. They're depressed. They're depressed. They're crying inside. They have all this money and they're still not happy. So I always say money does not equal happiness. You can have $1 million, $1 billion in your bank account and still not be happy. Fame is not for everybody. And just because you're famous does not mean you're happy. I think that's the issue. People equate money to happiness. Money does not equate to happiness. You know how many celebrities I've seen do interviews saying that they have all this money and still want to commit suicide and still was miserable inside? So I say all this to say we have to start addressing the issues before it gets to this extent. Because if you keep that in, if you don't talk about it, if you don't tell anybody, if you don't even go to therapy, if you don't even come to the realization that you need to get some help, then you can't address those issues. They're being swept under the rug. My cousin, I'm going to tell you another story. My cousin had a friend who committed suicide. He saw the friend the previous day. The friend appeared fine. Maybe he was talking to him in the code, because I always say when somebody wants to end it all, they talk to you in the code. You may not understand the code they're speaking in, but they're letting you know in so many words that they're thinking about ending it, that they're tired. They're tired. They don't want to do this anymore. Saw the friend that following day they talked. Next day the friend shot himself, killed suicide. It tore my cousin up inside. That was one of his best friends. Just tore him up, and I could see it all over him. He was just, and even went on to say, my cousin even went on to tell his story about how he almost committed suicide, but his girlfriend saved him. His girlfriend at the time had saved him from doing it. So you never know what somebody's going through around you. You never know what is happening, and that's why I said it's just, we have to address these things. If you're feeling depressed, talk about it. Feeling sad, talk about it. Feeling angry, talk about it. If you're feeling like you can't sleep and you're feeling like your life is not what it should be, address it and talk about it. Because if you don't address these things, how do you fix the issue? You can't fix something that's not being addressed. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that people don't get with mental health issues. If they're not addressed, they can't be fixed. And if we don't address those things and we don't speak out against it, we cannot fix the issues. So many people don't understand that, hey, if I don't address this, I can't get better. If I don't address this, I can't be in the space that I need to be in, because I'm not addressing anything that's happening around me. And that can become a huge issue because nothing is being addressed. I think a lot of it is fear, because people are fearful of what the unknown, of what could happen if they address it. I'm going to tell y'all another thing too. I struggle with driving anxiety, and I was not addressing it. The last couple months, I just haven't been driving anywhere. I only drive to work. I only drive to, when I say work, I work from home, but I work from home at my parents' house because I decided to keep my computer equipment at their house. So I drive to their house for work. I would drive to the grocery store. And that was the only places I would go. If I wanted to go any further than outside of my small town, I would have my boyfriend take me. I would have my parents take me, or a friend or whoever, but I would not take myself because I was having driving anxiety. Every time I would drive somewhere that I was not comfortable with, I would have a panic attack. My hands would get sweaty, her chest rate would go up, my feet would shake. It was bad. And so the other day, I had to go take my daughter. She wanted to go to a shoe store because she wanted to get my dad some shoes for Father's Day. And she said, can you please take me to the store, Mom? My daughter's 8, by the way, y'all. 8 years old. She said, Mommy, please, can we go to this shoe store I want to go to, please? And she's like, I want to get Grandpa these shoes. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. Mind you, I do take medications, y'all. I take Lamictal and I also take hydroxine. So I was like, I took both my medications. I said, I'm going to travel. We got halfway down the road and I panicked. I pulled over in the parking lot at a laundromat and I sat there. And my daughter said, Mom, what's wrong? Why aren't you moving? I want to go. And I'm like trying to tell her, okay, I got to have a moment. I pull up ChatGPT. I think it's ChatGPT. I also pull up Google and I'm like, what can I do? I'm having a panic attack in my car. They gave me I'm going to show y'all. I'm going to pull it up for y'all. They gave me a huge listing of stuff I can do. And I hope this helps somebody else because let me tell y'all, I got to find out. All right, I'm going to Google it. What can I do if I'm having a panic attack in my car? All right, y'all, I don't know if it's saved from last time. Okay, so these are the things that helped me. I had to pull it up again, y'all, because it went away. But this is what it basically told me. So basically, it told me pull over safely. I pulled over. It said to focus on your senses. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, and 2 things you can smell. Breathe slowly. Remind yourself that panic attacks, while scary, are not life-threatening and will pass. Loosen tight clothes. Open a window, get some fresh air. Call someone. Wait it out. It actually told me more last time, but let me see if I can get another one. What can I do if I'm having a panic attack in my car? Hold on, y'all. I'm going to try to do this again. I'm trying to find what I said last time to it because last time it really was helpful. What to do if you have driving anxiety when you're trying to drive. All right, so this is what it told me basically. All right, so this is giving me a better listing, y'all. I'm going to show y'all. So basically, this is what it told me. Before you start driving, plan your route, practice relaxation, bring comfort items, remind yourself. So always have water, cold water, listen to calm music, practice relaxation. And that's what I did. I pulled over in a laundromat parking lot. I started talking to myself. I started focusing on the present. I started breathing. I started doing self-talk like I am safe. I can handle this. I was listening to music. I was taking breaks if I felt like I needed to. You know, you can pull over safely, count, wait until you're calm. And those are some of the things I did. Now, I'm going to tell you guys what really, really helped me. Finally, after like 10 minutes of sitting in the parking lot, my daughter, of course, was like, Mommy, when are we going to go? The store's going to close. I finally got the courage to drive, y'all. And I did it. And what helped me, and I'm going to say anybody who has panic attacks when they're driving, helped me tremendously. You have to look at your surroundings. Every time I passed the store, I would tell my daughter, that's Popeyes. I would say my daughter, that's Goodwill. I would say, that's a business building. That's a blue car. That's a bush. That's a tree. And I said it out loud the whole car ride. Now, so some that might be annoying, but I'm telling you, it's the reason I got through that drive. And we made it to the other city that we had to go to. And everywhere we drove, every stoplight, I would say, that's a stoplight. I would say, that's a blue car. That's a building. That's a Wendy's or whatever. Just, I named every place that I saw on the road. And I started to relax. I had the heat, the AC blowing on my face. I had a bottle of water with me, kept sipping my water, and I just relaxed. And I made it. And I was like, yes, I did it. Just by counting my scenery, y'all. That's all I did. And I'm not gonna lie, it was just, we got to one part in the road, and I could feel my anxiety flaring up. I took a deep breath and I just started looking around my surroundings again. I started naming places and I made it to the shoe store and we made it back home safe. Whew. I was so proud of myself. So proud of myself because I did something that I did not think I could do, y'all. I was so proud of myself. I called my mom like, Mom, I made it there and back. And she was like, I'm so proud of you. She's like, I know you could do it. I'm getting emotional, y'all. But like, I was so proud of myself because you have to understand for months, y'all, I have not been able to go anywhere outside of my small town without somebody having to drive me because I was so scared of driving. And I did it. And I want to tell everybody, if I had never addressed it, it would still be stuck under there and I would still not be able to go anywhere. So that's why I say all to say you have to address the issues because if you don't address them, they will still linger there and they won't get help. You won't get help if you don't address the issues that are lingering. So if I didn't address my driving anxiety head on, if I didn't talk about it in therapy that Friday with my therapist and get tips, if I didn't go online and get tips, if I didn't push myself and expose myself, I would still be stuck in that driving anxiety. And I still have it, y'all. I'm not going to say it's gone completely, but I'm going to keep making myself drive places and exposing myself. And if I have to pull over, then I have to pull over. If I have to stop to breathe, I have to do that. But I'm still going to drive and make it to my destinations regardless of how. I'm not going to let my driving anxiety take over from me going where I need to go. And the first step started Saturday when I drove to that place. Now I'm excited to drive to more places and just keep doing the same thing over and over. But I had to address it in order to face it, right? If I didn't get in the car and drive that day, I would have not faced I wouldn't address it. I would still be stuck. So I also say you got to address the issues, y'all, because once you do it, you'll be so proud of yourself because the more you address the issues with your mental health, the more you can heal and fix the issues. But without addressing it, we cannot heal. And so if I didn't address that, I couldn't heal from it. So this is very important. to address the issues, whether good or bad. You have to address them. I don't know, like I said, what caused my driving anxiety, to be real with y'all. It just happened one day, so I don't know. Really, I'm trying to figure it out in therapy now, but I don't have a set reason to tell y'all why. Even if I don't know the reason, I'm still going to keep addressing the mental health issues head on so that I can heal and grow from this situation, y'all. I just want everyone listening to know that it's okay to address the issues. You're not alone. Someone out there will love you. Someone out there will listen to you. Someone out there will give you a hug. Someone out there will have advice. Someone out there will just be there for you when you need them, when you're addressing the issues. And surround yourself with positive people, because if you have negative people around you, then of course you're not going to feel comfortable addressing your issues with them or talking about it, because you don't have people around you who understand. A lot of people are not educated on mental health. They don't care to be educated, or the ones who do choose not to pick up a book or go to the library or even Google to get information on it. And some people will ask you, well, what can I do? And I've had people ask me, when you get like that, what can I do to help you? And that makes me feel good, because that means they understand me. They're trying to figure it out so they can help me. But when people just throw it under the rug, it's like, well, dang, really? You don't even care? Like, really? So when you have positive people around you, that helps tremendously. But when you don't have that positivity, it's hard for you to address the issues because you feel like no one cares. And I always want to keep saying this, always address the issue within you first, and then address it with other people if you feel comfortable addressing it with them. But you have to address it within yourself first before you can address it with anyone else, including your therapist or anyone else. I'm being honest. You have to address it within you. And I want to keep repeating this. Just because you have a mental health issue does not mean you're a bad person or you're crazy or any of these stereotypes that is placed upon us sometimes. You are okay. You are normal, as you're normal to me. And it's just you have an issue that you need help with, and that is nothing wrong with that. Some people don't even believe in going to therapy because they say, I don't want to talk to a stranger. Why would I talk to a stranger? I'm not going to tell a stranger my business. But I'm going to be real with you. I feel more comfortable telling a stranger than people I know most times, because a stranger ain't going to judge you. They're not going to judge you. They're just going to listen to you. And I think people who shy away from therapy, unfortunately, hold themselves back. I was on TikTok, and I used to follow this content creator. I don't follow them now because their content got too negative. I had to block them. But I remember she would always talk about how I can't go to therapy. I can't do this. She was so negative. A therapist ain't going to help. But then every other day she's online making a video crying about her life and all these things. I'm just like, you need to go to therapy. It's obvious you're depressed. You're crying on your school bus that you work on. You're crying. And I'm just being honest with y'all. If you're crying in your car all the time, if you're crying on the bus while you're picking up children at your job, if you're crying constantly, you need to get some help, because that's not normal. And then saying you won't go to therapy because therapists can't help you. How do you know that? If you don't even go. Again, she has issues, but she's not addressing the issues to get the help. So, if you don't address your issues, then it's never going to get better for you. You're going to stay stagnant and stay in a place that you don't need to be in. And that's, like I said, that's a huge issue for a lot of people. They don't want to address it, even though they know something going on with them is not correctly right. But instead of addressing it, they rather let it linger and drag on to the point it turns into something that doesn't need to be. And I think that that's insane to me, that people don't want to address these type of issues, and they should. Years ago, I dated a guy, y'all. And I just remember his brother had mental health issues. His brother never wanted to address those issues. Never wanted to address them, but he had them. And then I just remember towards the end of that relationship ending, I remember before me and him officially ended things, his brother had ended up getting into a mental institution because he wasn't addressing his issues. And because he didn't address those issues and he was doing things that were out of ordinary for him, they ended up putting him in a hospital for help. But again, the issues were there. His family could see the issues. He could see the issues, but in his mind, nothing was wrong with him. So, yeah, it's rough. It is rough, y'all. It is really, really, really rough sometimes if we don't address these issues. They may come into bigger things that they don't need to be. And, yeah, that's really what it is that you can't get better if you don't address the issue. And you can't try to make people feel, I hate to say this, but people are not, it's like the saying that people used to say back in the day, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink the water. And that is so true. You can try to help somebody, but so much, but if they're not willing to get the help themselves, it's nothing else you can do. And I hate to say that, but that's how it is. If you're choosing not to address your issues, knowing you have issues, how can someone help you? Like, this is like someone who's an alcoholic. You're drinking 5 or 6 bottles of beer, cans of beer a day or more, but you tell everybody, I don't have a problem. I have a problem. I'm just drinking. I'm just having fun. But there's obviously an issue when you're drinking 6 or more cans of beer every day from the time you wake up, from the time you go to bed. There's an issue, and of course you're not addressing it. So what? Again, I saw a guy on TikTok, alcoholic, talks about it, drinks constantly. People in the comments tell him, hey, you should get some help. People in the comments tell him, like, you talk about this, and he gets angry at them, lashes out. Because I guess he said himself on a video that he, in fact, was an alcoholic. And he loved to drink. But when he brings it to the table, it's fine. But if you get in the comments and say something, it's like, oh no. So again, he's addressing the issue, but he's choosing to sweep it under the rug and say, I don't have a problem. I'm okay. I just like to drink to have fun. Most alcoholics say that. They say, I like to drink just to have fun. Having fun does not equate to you drinking a whole 24-pack of beer. That's something's wrong if you drink that from the time you wake up from the time you go to bed. Like I told you guys, again, if you're crying all day long, can't get out of bed, can't shower, you gotta address that. That's not, a lot of people will equate that to, you're just being lazy. No, that's not just being lazy. That is you are probably struggling with depression, because I've been there. Had days where I didn't want to get out of bed, had days where I was crying all the time, had days where I didn't feel good, had days where I didn't want to do nothing but isolate, wreck, didn't want to eat, didn't want to do nothing, didn't want to get out of my PJs. And I had to address the issue and realize that I was struggling with depression, okay? So a lot of times, another thing that bugs me is when people who struggle like that have people that live with them, like the parents or siblings or significant others, that say, well, you need to get out of bed. You're lazy. Get up. You're lazy. And it's not laziness. It's depression. It's depression when you can't get out of bed, when you're crying all day, when you don't want to eat, when you barely want to shower. That is straight up depression. That is not laziness. It is depression. And I feel like sometimes our family members have an issue with addressing these issues as well. You may talk to them about it, but they don't get it. They don't see it that way. In certain communities, people will say, nothing wrong with you. You're not depressed. Nothing wrong with you. But the reality is, you don't know. You don't know what's wrong with your family member or your child or whoever. If you haven't tried to talk to them or understand them to realize what could be possibly going on. I know some people who tell me, I don't believe in depression or anxiety. That doesn't exist. I'm like, what? When they know that it does in fact exist. They just in their mind have made it so it's not a thing. And like I said, a lot of people have seasonal depression where they get depressed in the winter because it's so cold out and they're trapped in the house from the snow. And some people have it for years, like me. Unfortunately, it's not seasonal. I've had depression and anxiety for years. Got diagnosed when I was 18 years old. And I've had it for years, on and off, for years. It would be here, it would go. But I've learned that if I don't take my medications, I'm not well. Off my meds, I'm not well. So I had to address that issue. I had to address the fact that, Sherelle, if you don't take your meds, you are not well. I had to address that. If I didn't address that and start taking it every day, this is the first medication that I'm on, Lamictal and hydroxyzine, that I've been taking every day with no breaks in between. I never took a med this much, because usually I'm like, I don't want to take this no more. I'm giving up. But I'm like, no, not today. I'm going to take my meds, because if we don't, again, we got to address it. If I didn't address that, I would still be saying, oh, I don't need that medication. But I had to address the fact that, hey, you do need that medication to function, so you got to take it, whether you want to or not. So I say all this to say that sometimes we have to address these issues. Sorry, y'all, my dog's like over there doing whatever he's doing. But we have to address these issues in order to face it head on and to do the best things that we know how to do. So I want y'all to take away from this episode is address your issues. Make a note about addressing your issues. Make sure to address the issues. Make sure to put your issues out there. And it's okay to do that. Make sure to address it within yourself. You can address your family and friends. If you feel comfortable, you can address your therapist. You can address whoever you feel safe to talk about it with. But don't let sweep it under the rug. If you have any symptoms of depression or anxiety or whatever, address the issue so you can fix it. But don't sweep it under the rug, okay? So that's what I want you guys to take away from this episode. Address your mental health issues. It's okay to address it. Do not let it go undiagnosed. Do not let it linger on. Address it head on and face it head on, okay? And again, guys, thanks for tuning in. Look out for more episodes coming your way. And I have another episode coming in the next week, so look out for it, you guys. And you have a great, great night.